While conducting a routine patrol near the riverbank, officers noticed the outline of an object submerged in the murky waters. Closer inspection revealed it to be an old Corvette, long rumored to be lost, but never confirmed. The recovery operation attracted local attention, and as the car was finally pulled from the depths, anticipation grew. What they discovered inside the car sent ripples through the community, challenging everything they thought they knew. Officer Matty had quickly managed to set up an operation that was capable of carefully getting the water-damaged Corvette out of the lake. He could still barely believe that it had finally been found after all those years. Everybody had given up the search at some point, even him. And now the famous vehicle was just handed to him on a plate like it was meant to be. As Matty watched the car get pulled out of the lake by the capable hands and equipment of the crew he assembled, he thought back to 5 years ago when this Corvette, and mainly its owner, were on the tips of everybody's tongue. Every single person in the small town was talking about him for weeks on end, and for a very good reason. The owner of the car was named George Kennedy, but in the town, he went by many names. He was a very rich man who held a lot of secrets about how he got his money, but it was very clear he was involved in some shady business. And what made him even more scary was that it seemed like he had even more power than the mayor of the town at some point. The rich city overlord, it had started to come out that he had over half the police force of the town on his payroll, which meant he could get away with nearly anything. That is exactly what he did. But Matty and a group of other detectives had set out to finally get the truth above water about this guy, and were doing a lot of investigation in absolute secret. And they had actually been making some progress. But George Kennedy had gotten tipped off by a corrupt member of the team, and had started supposedly destroying evidence of his businesses. Matty and his crew knew they needed to act quickly, but were too late. George, his house was going up in flames when they arrived, and they just about saw his yellow Corvette speed off. They did their best to chase the car down, but he had simply already gotten too much ground on him, and they lost him in the nearby forest. Matty was afraid that this meant that every chance they had of ever finding substantial evidence to put George behind bars was now lost. Everybody was tasked to keep an eye out for the car, but it was not seen again. Until now. And the fact that they found it by complete coincidence was even more bizarre. He had just been on a routine patrol when he neared the old riverbank. The water level had significantly decreased due to the everlasting draft of the past couple of weeks, and it had apparently decreased enough for some things to come to the surface, like a very familiar yellow car roof. When Matty first saw it, he had no doubt about what it was. It was unmistakable the roof of a yellow Corvette, and there was only one of those he had ever seen around here. The find had made him so excited that he nearly jumped into the river to get to the car as quickly as possible. But his partner managed to compose him, and they called in the find to have it dealt with properly. With the car now finally fully out of the water, Matty could do what he had wanted to do for so many years now: look for evidence. The idea that this car had been submerged in the water for years did make his hopes sink a bit. A lot of potential evidence, like fingerprints, hard drives, or paperwork, probably would not have survived such a long time underwater. Matty and his team combed through the soggy interior of the Corvette. They pulled out mats, checked beneath seats, and even tapped on the dashboard, hoping for hidden compartments. Every surface was stained or warped by water. It was like peeling back layers of damp history. Their faces showed it all: frustration. They had hoped for much, but so far found only ruins. They sifted through muck and debris that had accumulated inside the Corvette over the years: bits of glass, chunks of rusted metal, and waterlogged papers that crumbled to the touch. Nothing they found looked remotely like it would serve as evidence. Just as the team's energy began to wane, something caught the eye of Officer Jenna. A hint of something different. Under the back seat, tucked away and almost part of the car's frame, was a small, watertight box. Jenna pointed it out, and the rest of the team gathered around, their interest renewed. This box was out of place, deliberate in its concealment. It was heavy, solid, suggesting it was meant to protect whatever was inside from prying eyes and the river's grasp. Maddie pulled the box free, noting its unusual weight. It was locked tight, resisting initial attempts to open it. The box was not just water-resistant, but appeared fireproof and crush-proof. "This might be it," Maddie muttered, hopeful. The box hinted at secrets George Kennedy wanted to sink forever. It was a tangible link to the past they desperately needed. Back at their van, the team speculated wildly about the contents as they prepared to transport the find to the station. "Could be money, documents, even something weirder," Jenna joked, trying to lighten the mood. They needed tools to crack into the box, a job for the station's tech team. This box could change everything, they hoped, as they headed back. Back at the station, Maddie cracked open the box with a set of sturdy tools. Inside, snug in a foam cutout, was a single notebook, its pages dense with coded text. The officers gathered around, their curiosity piqued. This small, soaked notebook might hold the answers to the long-standing mysteries surrounding George Kennedy's elusive past. The team flipped through the notebook, baffled by the cryptic writing. The code was complex. Symbols and numbers were scattered across every page in no obvious order. "Ever seen anything like this?" Maddie asked. Heads shook around the room. It was clear they were dealing with a sophisticated encryption method that none of them had encountered before. Attempts to decipher the code on the spot were futile. They tried common decryption techniques, substitution ciphers, transpositions, even looking for digital keys within the notebook's margins. Nothing worked. The more they tried, the more it seemed they were missing something crucial. It was unlike any puzzle they had tackled in their careers. Frustration mounted as the team acknowledged the notebook was the only item inside the box. No keys, no additional clues, just page after page of undecipherable text. It was a sobering moment. All their hopes were pinned on this one lead, and it threatened to evaporate as quickly as it had appeared. Maddie decided it was time to call in the big guns. "We need someone who can crack this," he declared, scanning the room for agreement. Nods affirmed his decision. Tomorrow, he would reach out to cryptography experts who could possibly make sense of the mysterious notebook. For now, they secured it in evidence. A silent promise of secrets, waiting to be revealed. Maddie spent the morning compiling a list of cryptography experts who might crack the code. He scoured academic publications, forensic newsletters, and online forums. Each name added to the list was another shot at unraveling the notebook's secrets. By noon, he had a solid list of candidates and began reaching out, hopeful for a breakthrough. He sent emails to the experts, attaching images of the coded pages. "We've found something unique and could use your insight," he typed. Each email was a blend of formal request and urgent plea for help. As he hit send on each message, a mix of anticipation and anxiety filled the air around his desk. Responses trickled in throughout the day. Several experts were intrigued by the challenge, their replies a mix of technical jargon and palpable excitement. They requested more detailed images to better examine the intricate coding. Maddie arranged for high-resolution scans of the pages, sending them off with a renewed sense of hope. Maddie also met with Officer Jen, who dabbled in amateur cryptography. They spread out the notebook on a table in the back room, poring over the mysterious script together. "I've seen something similar in a workshop," Jen remarked, sparking a discussion on potential decryption strategies they could attempt. They decided to meet regularly, aiming to crack the code themselves if external help fell short. "Let's set up a weekly decode session," Maddie suggested. Jen agreed, excited by the prospect. They jotted down a plan, listing potential tools and resources they might need. Their collaborative spirit was a small beacon of hope amidst the daunting challenge. Michael, the cryptography expert from out of state, sent back an optimistic email. "This looks like something I can tackle," he wrote. He requested more detailed images to get a closer look at the intricate coding. Maddie felt a surge of hope. Maybe they were finally on the right track to cracking the code inside the mysterious notebook. Maddie went to the tech room and worked with their digital forensics team to capture high-resolution images of the notebook's key pages. He made sure every symbol and scribble was visible. These images were then securely emailed to Michael, ensuring he had the best resources to start the decryption process. Meanwhile, Maddie presented the notebook to Jen, the in-house code-breaking hobbyist. Her eyes lit up with excitement as she took it. She began analyzing the symbols methodically, jotting down her observations and theories. It was a long shot, but her enthusiasm breathed new life into the investigation. Collaborative sessions kicked off, with Maddie coordinating between Michael and Jen. He relayed findings, shared insights, and scheduled video calls to discuss progress. This coordination was crucial as both parties delved deeper into the notebook's contents, each from their own angle, but with a shared goal of solving the puzzle. After several days, both Michael and Jen shared their preliminary findings with the team over secure channels. They compared notes and theories, trying to find a common thread in the disparate pieces of information each had uncovered. The collaboration was shaping up to be an intriguing mix of old-school police work and cutting-edge cryptographic analysis. Michael's analysis came back faster than expected. His message was clear. The contents seemed to be nothing more than mundane lists, possibly groceries. "It's everyday stuff," his email concluded. Maddie stared at the screen, the words not quite making sense. All this secrecy for grocery lists? It didn't add up. Disheartened, Maddie shared the news with his team. "Grocery lists? Really?" he scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. The significance of such a carefully hidden document being so trivial baffled him. He pored over the expert's detailed analysis again, hoping to find something, anything, that hinted at a deeper significance. He reviewed the translations and notes from Michael, looking for overlooked clues. Why would anyone go to such lengths to protect something so ordinary? Maddie discussed these thoughts aloud with the team, hoping a fresh perspective might reveal what he was missing. But no answers came, only more questions. Feeling misled, Maddie vented his frustration in a team meeting. "We might have hit a dead end," he admitted reluctantly. The energy in the room dipped as the reality set in. They had all hoped for a breakthrough, and now it seemed like they were back to square one. Despite the setback, Jen, the in-house code-breaking enthusiast, urged the team not to give up. "There's something off about this. It's too elaborate for groceries," she insisted. Her conviction sparked a small flame of hope in the room. She vowed to keep working on the notebook, convinced there was more to uncover. Jen spent days with the notebook, her focus unyielding. Finally, she cracked the code, revealing it was not about groceries at all. Instead, the pages contained detailed logs and numbers. She called Maddie immediately, her voice filled with excitement and relief. "It's something big," she said. This was the breakthrough they had been hoping for. The notebook actually listed detailed records of illicit transactions and contacts. Dates, amounts, and cryptic names filled its pages. This wasn't mundane at all. It was a detailed ledger of underground activities. Jen photographed the decoded pages and prepared them for Maddie. This was the kind of evidence they needed to reignite their stalled investigation. Maddie felt a surge of hope as Jen shared her findings. The investigation, once stalled by disappointment, now had new momentum. "We've got something real now," he announced to the team. Energized, they gathered around as he laid out the decoded contents. It was a turning point, and they knew it. Suspicions about Michael's initial analysis grew within the team. How could he miss this? Matty wondered aloud. He decided it was time for a direct confrontation. Could Michael have deliberately misled them? It was a question that needed answering, and Matty was determined to find out the truth. With the notebook's true significance revealed, Matty quickly planned their next moves. "We need to dig deeper into every name and transaction listed here," he directed his team. They needed to act fast, understanding the full scope of what they had uncovered. It was a critical moment, and there was no time to lose. Matty confronted Michael in a tense, closed-door session. He pressed him about the misleading analysis, suspecting a deeper connection with George. Michael's nervous demeanor only fueled Matty's suspicions. The interrogation was intense as Matty laid out the implications of lying to the police. Michael's answers were cautious, his eyes darting away with every question about George. Under relentless pressure, Michael finally cracked. He admitted to previous dealings with George, revealing that he had been pressured to throw the police off track. "He threatened me," Michael disclosed, his voice a mix of fear and relief at confessing. This new revelation reshaped the case, providing a direct link between Michael and George's shady operations. With Michael's admission, Matty and his team gathered to strategize their next moves. They mapped out Michael's connections to George, using the notebook's information as a guide. Their goal was clear: find George's current whereabouts. The room buzzed with activity as they plotted their approach, determined to leverage every piece of new information. The team dove into Michael's personal and professional networks, looking for any leads that could point to George. They scrutinized financial records, phone logs, and known associates. Every piece of data was a potential clue, and Matty made sure no stone was left unturned. The investigation was now broader, more intense than ever. As they worked late into the night, the realization set in. This notebook was indeed the key to convicting George. The detailed records it contained were invaluable. "This could really take him down," Matty mused, flipping through the pages once more. Determination filled the room. They were closer than ever to cracking the case wide open. After discovering incriminating evidence at Michael's home, Matty confronted him about his ties to George. Michael looked cornered, his earlier composure crumbling under the weight of the findings. Matty's questions were pointed and relentless, seeking to unravel the full extent of Michael's involvement in George's operations. Under the harsh light of interrogation, Michael confessed to being coerced by George to mislead the police. "He made me do it," Michael admitted, detailing threats to his safety if he failed to comply. This admission painted a broader picture of George's manipulative reach and his efforts to protect his criminal network. Matty recorded Michael's confession, capturing every detail on tape. This was substantial evidence, crucial for the upcoming legal actions. The recording would serve as a powerful tool in their case against George, proving his influence and manipulation extended far beyond the usual criminal activities. With Michael's involvement confirmed, the team met to discuss their next steps. "We've got a real shot at George now," Matty said, laying out their strategy. They needed to act quickly and smartly, using Michael's information to track down and capture George before he could cover his tracks any further. The team enhanced their surveillance and intelligence-gathering efforts, determined to close in on George. Using Michael's detailed information, they monitored known associates and tracked financial transactions linked to his operations. Every piece of data added to their growing case, and their resolve only strengthened to bring George to justice. Armed with a warrant, police officers stormed into Michael's house early in the morning. They swept through each room, uncovering hard drives, documents, and encrypted digital files. It was a treasure trove of evidence, potentially holding the keys to George's operations. Each piece of evidence was meticulously logged and taken for in-depth analysis. The initial analysis of the seized materials was promising. Among the digital clutter, they found recent communications between Michael and George. Emails and encrypted messages sketched a picture of ongoing collusion. These were the connections they had been chasing, direct links that could lead them to George himself. Under the weight of the evidence and intense questioning, Michael finally cracked. He disclosed a possible location for George, a hideout he'd mentioned in passing. This was the breakthrough Matty had been hoping for, a solid lead on George's whereabouts that could lead to his capture. With a new lead in hand, Matty coordinated a tactical operation to capture George. He briefed his team on the location, outlining the approach and assigning roles. Every officer knew what was at stake and the importance of precision. They rehearsed the raid, ensuring everyone was clear on their tasks. The atmosphere was tense but focused. The team prepared for the potential confrontation, understanding that the stakes were incredibly high. They checked their gear, reviewed the plan, and set up surveillance around the suspected hideout. Each member was alert and ready, knowing that capturing George could dismantle a significant criminal network. They were ready to move at a moment's notice. Surveillance teams confirmed George's presence in the Bahamas. Not only was he there, but he also appeared to be actively continuing his criminal enterprises. Matty reviewed the surveillance footage himself, noting George's interactions and the network he was operating. This was the solid lead they needed to coordinate an international operation. Matty led the charge in an international effort to apprehend George, working closely with local Bahamian authorities. They mapped out George's known haunts and prepared for a coordinated strike. The collaboration was seamless, with local police providing crucial insights into George's movements and hideouts. The arrest was swift and precise. George was caught off guard during a routine meeting at a local cafe. Despite being handcuffed, he remained arrogantly confident, smirking as he claimed, "You've got nothing on me." Little did he know, Matty's team had built a solid case back home. Extradition proceedings started immediately. The case against George was ironclad, facilitated by the detailed evidence Matty's team had compiled. Legal documents were filed and hearings were set. The process was expedited due to the severity of the charges and the strength of the international cooperation. Back at the police department, the team began preparing meticulously for the upcoming trial. Every document, every piece of digital evidence, and every bit of surveillance footage was cataloged and reviewed. They knew the trial would be challenging, but they were determined to ensure all evidence was perfectly in order for the prosecutors. The courtroom was packed as the trial against George commenced. Central to the case was the notebook, presented as the key piece of evidence. It contained detailed records of George's criminal contacts and illicit activities, enough to conflict him for life. The prosecution laid out the contents methodically, ensuring every entry was highlighted in front of the jury. As the details of the notebook were exposed, the defense found it increasingly difficult to counter. Each transaction and contact listed was linked back to George, painting a clear picture of his involvement in numerous crimes. The courtroom grew tense as the weight of the evidence left little room for doubt. The prosecutors used the evidence effectively, tying George directly to a range of illegal activities. They showcased communications, financial records, and witness testimonies that all corroborated the information found in the notebook. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin, firmly planting George at the center of the criminal network. The judge delivered a guilty verdict, sentencing George to life imprisonment due to the overwhelming evidence laid before the court. The sentence was a direct result of the meticulous work by Matty and his team, who had ensured that every piece of evidence was irrefutable. The courtroom was silent as the reality of the judgment set in. Following the trial, Matty and his team were commended for their perseverance and dedication. The successful conclusion of this case closed a significant chapter in their careers, marking a major victory against organized crime. Their thorough investigation and the conclusive evidence they gathered were celebrated by the department and the community.